family-owned shop in Loganville, Soesby's Garage for all your automotive repair needs. We service all makes and models, foreign and domestic. We repair engines, alternators, brakes, alignments, AC systems, and more, using certified technicians with over 90 years of combined experience. We also offer same-day service for some repairs. Soesby's Garage, 200 Bay Creek Road in Loganville. Dependable, honest, and fair. Look us up on Google or Facebook. We'll take good care of you.
Broadcasting live from the Subaru of Gwinnett studio inside the Sonesta Gwinnett Place Atlanta Hotel. It's time for Case in Point, presented by Paradigm Security Services. We are the cornerstone of security in the Southeast.
Hey everybody, welcome to Case in Point again, presented by Paradigm Security Services. I'm your host, Rick Strong, the President and CEO of Paradigm Security Services. We're excited to be with you again today on Business RadioX. We're coming to you from the Subaru of Gwinnett studio, located in beautiful Sonesta Gwinnett Place Atlanta Hotel in Duluth, Georgia. Each week we plan on featuring businesses and people in the Atlanta area, especially those that serve here in Gwinnett County. While all businesses have security concerns, not all are about physical security, and we will touch on that and all related aspects of security through the course of each show. My guest today, I'm very happy to have Ms. Tracie Cason, Mrs. Tracie Cason, a Gwinnett County Superior Court judge. I have known Tracie for quite a while. May I call you Tracie?
Of course, please.
In fact, we kind of got hooked up with Leadership Gwinnett, kind of engaged a little bit.
That's right.
I wonder, have you still got my ring?
I do. Beautiful plastic.
I know,
diamond
it glows
ring.
glows in the dark type
Yes.
thing. That was a great experience, and it's one of the best things I've ever done. I know you too, as far as that type of leadership.
Oh yeah.
Is going through Leadership Gwinnett, class of 2014, and yours was
2015.
2015.
That's right.
And one of the first things I always ask people, or I like to ask people, is, who is Tracie Cason? Who are you? Where'd you come from? Where were you born? What in the world got you into doing judging?
Okay. Well, I am a lifelong Georgian. Love being a lifelong Georgian, but I was born in Marietta, grew up in Dublin, Georgia, which was where my father grew up, and started my prosecutorial career in the Dublin DA's office. But Gwinnett was always known to have the best DA's office in the world.
Yep.
Danny Porter had a great reputation, and as a young prosecutor, I did not want to be in Dublin, Georgia, as much as I loved it. I was a young single prosecutor and wanted...
Land of the forgotten DAs and prosecutors.
That's right. So I wanted to move to a bigger place and a better place, and Gwinnett called my name, and was lucky to get a job with Danny and worked there for 18 years and loved it. I had always wanted to be a prosecutor since I was 12 years old, had great teachers that kind of put that in my soul to do.
It's an excellent choice, telling you from
Yeah.
a cop's perspective. That's an excellent choice.
Yes, well, I loved it, and I miss it, but after doing it 18 years here in Gwinnett and 3 in Dublin, it was time to kind of change the direction of my community service.
You must have started that at about 12 years old.
I was.
Because you're not old enough to have been in there that long.
I know.
Gosh.
I know.
And what from there? You went into being a judge.
I did. So I was lucky to have the opportunity to run for an open seat. Judge Deborah Turner retired, and what was interesting is she was the first judge that I was assigned to when I came to Gwinnett. And so I was fortunate to have the opportunity to run for her seat.
Kind of mentorship.
Yeah, she was fantastic. And so that was an interesting experience, my first time ever in politics. And I can't say that I enjoyed the political experience of it. I enjoyed meeting everybody throughout the experience and getting out and talking to people about the judicial system and what's going on, and was fortunate to win enough votes to win the race, and have been loving it ever since.
Well, and that kind of brings me to my question, what does one how does one become a Superior Court judge? Because I know, I believe it's a
Nonpartisan.
Nonpartisan, yeah, thank you.
Exactly.
So, how do you run? Do you have runoffs? Tell us about how you become one.
So there are a couple of different ways you can become a Superior Court judge. One is, depending on the circumstance, the governor can appoint a Superior Court judge. So if there's an opening that's not going to be filled by an election, a judge retires before their term ends, unfortunately a judge passes away or some other way gets removed from office. Then,
like Sean did. Sean Bratton.
Yes, he got appointed. So he was appointed to a seat that someone had vacated, but it was before their term was over. Judge Angela Duncan got appointed, but it was a brand new position. So she'll have to run for re-election in 2 years. The other way, of course, is by running for an open seat or running against a sitting judge. Yeah. I ran for an open seat, and it is nonpartisan. So you're not Republican or Democrat. You're on every ballot. And judicial races are on the primary ballot. That's their general election. Our races are not on the November ballot. And so you have to make sure people understand that and say you have to vote in the primary to vote for your judges, because you won't see us on the November ballot. And like I said, you're on every ballot. You're on Democrat, Republican, and Independent. And if you don't get 50.1% of the vote, then there will be a runoff. I was lucky. I had 3 in my race. We were expecting a runoff, and we're very fortunate not to have a runoff, which was pretty unheard of with a 3-person race.
Exactly.
So I was very excited. We got over 60% of the vote, and so we didn't have to have a runoff. There was another open seat during my election. There were 5 individuals running for that, and of course they ended up with a runoff. In the most current judicial election, we do have a judicial runoff, and that is between Judge Kathy Schrader and Judge Deborah Fluker. And early voting is happening now for that runoff, as well as, of course, the primary runoffs that we've had in the Republican and Democratic primaries.
Happens on the 11th, I believe.
That's right. So early voting is happening now, and the runoff election day is August 11th. So for anyone that hasn't voted yet, you can still vote. I voted early. It took me 10 minutes at the main elections office, and I think they're starting to open the other satellite offices as well. And in, out, got my vote in, don't have to wait for election day.
Well, one of the things I try to drum into people's head is, number one, it's important to vote.
It is.
But it's even more important that you get informed before you vote. Learn about the candidates. Don't vote because, well, my brother's voting for this person, or my girlfriend's and her boyfriend's voting for this person, or my mama says do this. Get out there and read a little bit about each person, especially being a judge.
Exactly. Look
at their background. If they're running for being a judge, they've been an attorney for a while. So check out their background. What have they done? What kind of cases? Find out, learn more about them.
That's right.
Same way with any position in politics. Find out about the person's background. What have they done? So, and then vote what your conscience says, vote.
That's right. And judges, affect people's everyday lives. We handle domestic cases. We handle divorces, custody. We certainly handle, Superior Court judges handle felony criminal cases. So we're handling criminal trials, we're handling motions, we're handling pleas and sentencing. These are things that are affecting everyday, lives.
Well, I know that when you're handling these, before I ask the question I want to ask, I'm going to move to something else.
Okay.
When did you become Superior Court judge? I think you said a while ago when it was.
So I was elected in May of 2018, but my term did not start until January of 2019. And it's a 4-year term, so I'll run for re-election in May of 2022.
2022. So everybody keep that in mind.
That's right.
We got another election coming up in 2022. I'll be so glad when the election's over.
They're never over. It doesn't seem like.
That's funny. You're the second person today that said they're never over.
That's right.
And they aren't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it'll start just as soon as the election gavel goes down and
That's right.
somebody rings the bell. It's races on. COVID has affected a lot of things in a lot of places, a lot of activities. But one of the things that it has definitely affected is the court and the judicial system. Now, I know that a lot of people are really into this virtual hearing and all that kind of stuff that they do. I believe that right now we're kind of getting back away from it, but then I think now we may be going back to it because of the uptick. What is your position? I know it, your position, but what is your position on virtual versus face-to-face, personal?
When I ran, a lot of people asked me that, and I don't like video court. I think justice, whether it's criminal justice or civil justice, ought to be personal. I still believe that. Unfortunately, current times have forced us, and a lot of judges love the virtual medium and have been doing video court for years, and that's great, and everyone has their own personal opinion of how they want to do things. Of course, current times have led all of us, whether we like video court or not, to adapt. And it's been a good thing to allow us to get things done during these times that we otherwise would not have been able to get done. For instance, at the very beginning, when our judicial emergency was declared, which was around the exact same time, of course, that Governor Kemp declared the state of emergency, our Chief Justice declared a judicial emergency, which has legal connotations for our court system. Our Gwinnett Superior Court bench kind of took a step back for a few days, figured out how can we address the most essential things, because you can't just stop the courts. You can't stop justice from happening. We had individuals that were being arrested on charges that needed to have bond hearings.
Yeah, they got to have them within 72 hours.
Right, and so I will say that our Chief Magistrate Judge, Christina Bloom, their court handles most everything out at the jail. They never stopped, and they've been fantastic. And then all of those felony arrests would come to Superior Court. So even early on, we were making sure we were addressing issues of folks that were being held, and we did all of that by video. Our defendants didn't have to be transported from the jail. Sheriff's Department didn't have to enlist that help. Our prosecutors appeared via video from their office. The defense attorneys appeared via video. So everybody was maintaining safety. A lot of distance. But we were still able to address those very important constitutional and due process concerns of those folks that we had incarcerated. And we did that within 2 weeks of the judicial emergency. We've never stopped addressing those.
Good.
As things moved on and the judicial emergency, each order kind of lightened the restrictions up. And let me just say, it prevented us at the very beginning from compelling people to come to court, with the exception of essential matters, which were matters that affected people's liberty, so folks that were being held in jail. Matters of emergencies as far as safety of children. Oftentimes we get emergency motions in domestic cases alleging physical abuse of a child. So those we could compel people to come into court. But anyone else that wanted to come into court to have their cases addressed, we were still able to do that. Most of the judges did that by phone conferences and still by video. I don't know that anyone did any in person for the first probably couple of months that weren't essential. But we could still handle cases and resolve cases of the parties that wanted to have their cases resolved. It just prevented us from compelling people to come into court. But as the judicial emergency went on, and of course we thankfully got our numbers down for a little bit, the Chief Justice recognized that the courts can't stop. We still have to address all of these cases. People need to get divorced. They need their civil matters heard. They need their other criminal matters heard.
Custody issues have to be done.
Exactly. And so all of my counterparts have, I think, done a combination of video hearings and in-person. I prefer the in-person, so if I have a case where everyone wants an in-person, then I'm going to give that to them. They're going to be the only case in my courtroom. Everyone's going to wear a mask. We have hand sanitizers. We have Lysol wipes. We have masks available for those that don't have masks.
Plenty of distance in an empty courtroom with one case.
Exactly. And we're getting stuff done. If we have somebody in the case, however, that for whatever reason feels uncomfortable coming in, then we'll do it by video. And we can do a hybrid as well. If somebody wants to appear in person, but they have a witness that doesn't, then we'll do that witness by video. So we're able to get things done.
Gives everybody what they want, but they can't say, well, I don't want to come in, we're not going to do it.
Right.
Yeah, that's good.
And, to the extent that we try to accommodate everyone, if somebody says, I really, really want it in person, but I don't feel comfortable, can we continue it? Then we'll continue it. But if it's something that absolutely has to be heard, then we can force it to be done by video, even over their objection, just so we can get that case moving.
Sometimes it's got to be done.
That's right. That's right.
And that's good to hear, because I know from being in law enforcement and having that face-to-face, it's so much different to be able to look a judge in the eye and talk to them in your testimony, or to be look a defendant in their eye, make them look at you if they're going to start lying and stuff. I mean, I know from doing that for so long that when a judge is looking at that defendant and they're lying and looking at the officer, the body language is unbelievable.
Right.
It becomes, for most people, not everybody, but for most people, it becomes very visual and obvious that they're struggling and that they're looking for a way to lie about it.
Or on the contrary, that they're sincere about what they're saying. And you can tell from their body language that, this is not somebody that's just saying what you want to hear. Right.
Yep, exactly. And I think that's important. And like you say, from the person that's being charged, it's important too to be able to tell your story and have it, face to face, where people can tell that I'm being serious. I didn't do this.
Right.
And that's important.
Exactly.
Because sometimes that stuff gets there, as we know.
Right.
You got the bad apples, the good apples, and the ones that are somewhere in between.
Now, unfortunately, the one thing we still are not able to do under the Chief Justice's order is conduct jury trials, which is very unfortunate for those individuals that are being held without bond.
How do you do that?
Waiting.
How does that go? Do you put it off?
Yeah, you have to put it off. We in Gwinnett, our bench was very proactive at the beginning of this, and realized we're going to need a reentry plan for jury trials, and it's not going to be business as usual. So we created a subcommittee of our Superior Court judges to tackle this problem and say, once we get the go-ahead, how are we going to restart jury trials and keep everybody safe and make sure that our potential jurors feel as comfortable as they can when they get that jury summons? Because let's face it, even in normal times, a lot of people don't want to come to jury duty.
Yeah,
which
I can relate to that.
Let me just put my plug in. If you are ever charged with a crime, you want people like you coming in for jury service. It is one of the most important and critical functions we have. It's what sets our country apart from just about every other country in the world. So please don't avoid jury service. But having said that, we know that people do, and they're going to be even more apprehensive about coming in. But we've looked into all that. We've looked at a plan. We've looked at a way to minimize the number of jurors that we call. We've looked at staggering panels to come in. We've looked at only having them come in one time for their questioning, not have to come back for selection. We've talked about all that. We've contracted with a supplier to build some barriers in the jury box to see how that's going to work. We don't know if it is yet or not. We haven't gotten our prototype, but Gwinnett has been very proactive. The state has a statewide committee of the Judicial Council to discuss some of those same issues. We haven't gotten our information from them yet. So we're a little bit frustrated in Gwinnett, but we have a plan for that as soon as the Chief Justice gives us the go-ahead, because it's very unfortunate that we have individuals that are just sitting there waiting for their due process.
Well, that's one of the many reasons why I love living in this county. Is this county, regardless of whether it's judicial or what, has a tendency to be first proactive.
Right.
They look at it ahead of time. They analyze. They look at what are we going to have to do in the future. What's going to be coming at us. And then they try to put a plan in place.
Right.
So many of the surrounding areas, won't mention any names that begin with F and D, but they have a tendency to be reactive.
Mm-hmm.
And reactive in the judicial end is not always the best way to do.
No.
Well, really in any end of it.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
No, our bench has just been very good about wanting to make sure that we're all addressing everything that we can and need to address, and not letting the citizens of Gwinnett County down. there are going to be some lag times. There are going to be some things that get lengthened as far as time limits and things like that. But to the extent that we can address those concerns, because there are citizens that need our help in
they
whatever
want to be done
realm.
with it too.
Exactly. I mean, everyone needs closure in their legal problems, whatever those legal problems are. And that's one of the great things about being a judge, is that we can help individuals get that closure. They may not always like what that closure is, but sometimes there's just validity and value in the fact that it's closed,
The fact
that it's
done.
Right.
Kind of like the election.
Right.
Be glad when it's over.
Right.
Like
right.
you say, it's never over.
It's never over.
You've mentioned something there, and you've touched on it a little bit, but a lot of people don't realize what the difference between the state court, the superior court, and the type of cases that are handled. Can you explain the difference in what its superior court handles, and you might as well go ahead and just say what the state court handles,
Sure.
where it splits up?
Absolutely. So we have several different levels of courts in Georgia. The Superior Court is the highest trial court in the state of Georgia. And what that means is we have exclusive jurisdiction over all felony criminal cases. Now, we can also handle misdemeanors as well, but we have exclusive jurisdiction over felony criminal cases. And a felony is any offense that's punishable by a year in prison or more. And then we have exclusive jurisdiction over family law cases, so divorce and custody, legitimation cases. Those can only be handled in Superior Court. We also have exclusive jurisdiction over all property cases. So if you have a contest about the title to a property, that's going to come to Superior Court. And then finally, if it's a case for an injunctive relief, you filed for a temporary injunction against somebody or a company, those are going to come to Superior Court. Now, we also handle any contract cases. We handle, car wreck cases and all of that. But those 4 categories are what we have exclusive jurisdiction over. State court is also a trial court in Georgia, and they handle misdemeanor criminal cases. They cannot handle felony, but they can handle misdemeanors. And we have a solicitor's office here in Gwinnett County, and they're the prosecutors for misdemeanor cases, and they practice in state court. State court also can handle contract cases. They can handle car wreck cases and personal injury cases. And generally, personal injury and big medical malpractice, those cases are generally going to be filed in state court because they're going to get heard quicker because they don't have to sit behind felony criminal cases. Obviously, somebody that's in jail being held without bond, those cases are first priority.
Absolutely.
So a civil case is always going to take a second seat to those criminal cases. But in misdemeanor, in state court that handle misdemeanors, you don't have that. You don't have a lot of individuals being held in jail on misdemeanors. So those bigger civil cases are going to be heard. So state court hears a lot more big medical malpractice cases, big car wreck, truck wreck cases. Those kind of cases are going to go to state court. And they're chosen the exact same way that Superior Court. They're either appointed by the governor, depending on the situation, or they run, and they also serve a 4-year term.
Well, I know a lot of people, a couple of things, there's theft. I think they wonder, well, why is some people going to state court, some people go into Superior Court, and a lot of people don't understand that it's all in the value. Once you reach a certain point in that value, it crosses in. And so that, for people that don't know, it all depends on, if you hear they're going to state court, it's for under, and
that's right.
What is it now, do you remember?
It's $1,500.
$1,500. Back when I was policing, it was a lot less.
Oh, yes.
So I lose track of that.
Yes.
But the other thing is, when you hear somebody talking about a grand jury, that's on the felony side.
That is.
When they start talking about somebody going to a grand jury or having something presented to a grand jury, people just need to understand that that's on the felony end of it. They're not dealing with state court; they're dealing with Superior Court.
That's right. And grand jury is another level of protection between the government and the people. It is a group of randomly selected citizens. They hear the evidence and determine if there's even enough probable cause to send that case further in the system, whether it's going to get to Superior Court or not.
Whether it gets a no bill or a true bill.
That's right. That's right.
been there, done that, because I used to testify before grand juries. And a lot of people don't realize that, there's not many people that get to be tried before a grand jury or heard before a grand jury that actually have the right to hear that grand jury. And I think law enforcement is still one of them.
Right. Grand jury is generally a secret proceeding. The individual that's being charged does not have access to that. It's been that way from the beginning. But there are exceptions to certain classes of individuals that are charged that do get to sit in on that grand jury testimony, and that's all statutory.
Yep, it's all by the book.
That's right.
We've already talked about what the courts are doing to handle all these grand. How many Superior Court judges are there in Gwinnett County?
We now have 11. We just got our 11th last year, so we were very grateful for that. That's that new position that Judge Duncan was appointed to. So that gives us a little bit more relief to get cases through the system more quickly. I think our numbers, all of it is based on numbers because of how many people you have in your county and things like that. And of course, it all has to have the money to fund those positions. But from what I understand, our numbers actually qualifies for probably 13 or 14 Superior Court judges. But right now we don't have the space. We're getting the space. We have a new courthouse expansion, which I'll touch on in a minute. But again, you also have to have the finances. And of course, with the financial downturn that's been caused by the pandemic, we won't see any new judges for Gwinnett, especially since we just got one. Additionally, the county has to have money to also contribute to that judicial position. And again, with the economy, and we just got one, so obviously there are other circuits that need judges as well. But in the future, we will have the space because the county is building a courthouse expansion behind the current courthouse.
How's that going?
It is actually going well. That's the one thing I think that has actually benefited from the pandemic, from what I understand, because unfortunately a lot of the workers were not able to go home as often as they otherwise would have. So work has actually continued and gone at a faster pace, which again, knock on wood, because it's a government building. But from what they tell us, they're on track. And I can see the construction outside my window. So it's been very interesting to see it just from even clearing the area. And now all the sides are on the building. And soon I'm not going to be able to see the progress because it's all going to be inside. But we'll have 8 brand new Superior Court courtrooms.
That's fantastic.
It will be great because right now, not all of our courtrooms have holding cells, so we have to schedule criminal when we have a holding cell, and everyone doesn't have access to a holding cell every day.
Makes it drag.
So we have to rotate. We have what are called sharing pods with 3 judges, and we rotate 3 courtrooms, and so you just have to kind of juggle what kind of cases you're going to hear. In the new courthouse, every judge's courtroom will have the capability of a holding cell, and then there will be 3 Superior Court judges that are still in the old building in their courtrooms. They won't have to switch courtrooms. They'll have one courtroom assigned to them. It'll have a holding cell. So if somebody wants to have their case heard criminally, they've decided they want to enter a plea, then we can do that any single day because we know we're going to have the capability to bring that individual over from the jail, get their case done, and get them out of jail.
Do any of the judges, or will any of the judges be set up to where they only basically hear one specific type of case? For instance, when you have all the courtrooms and you can split it up a little better where you don't have to do all the rotation and stuff, where, these types of cases are heard primarily by Judge Cason?
No, right now we just have a vertical system, and every judge gets every type of case. There are some circuits that have like family court, and they rotate their judges. So for 2 years, one judge is only going to hear all domestic cases, and for 2 years, one judge is going to hear all civil cases, and for 2 years, one judge is going to hear all criminal cases. We're not set up that way in Gwinnett. Every judge hears all kinds of cases.
With COVID and everything going on, I know that you can't talk a lot about this or specifically because you may have to rule on something. We'll ask it a different way. How has the riots, the disruptions, and well, I don't even like to say how's the peaceful protests, because the peaceful protests don't affect it. Those people have that right, and God bless them. But the other part of it, when you have the disruption and you have the criminal activity, how has that affected our system?
I haven't seen a huge effect. I mean, I don't know that we've had a huge influx of any criminal cases
In our county.
Right. Now, some of that there's going to be a lag time because we don't have a grand jury sitting right now. Now, the DA's office can file criminal cases without a grand jury. There's a specific type of cases that can be filed. And I don't know that it's just because we're still kind of lagging on the non-custody serious cases that we're handling. We haven't seen a lot of that. The only effect that I know that our bench has had is when there were some protests planned for around the Lawrenceville area. The sheriff's department gave us the heads up and preferred to have the judges out of the building so that there just wouldn't be any security concerns and they could focus on keeping the safety of everyone else that was involved in the protest.
Exactly. Well, that's a good thing for Gwinnett. I mean, right. We've been very lucky during this, and I think a lot of that happens a lot of it's based on the diversity of our county.
Oh yeah.
I mean, everybody lives here.
That's right.
So it's such a split like it is in so many places.
Right. Well, and I think too, our county, from what I've seen, has done a very good job of being transparent about
communication,
law enforcement, and government actions here in Gwinnett County. Certainly, we've had our own issues with some of the underlying issues that are leading to
the stuff
the
that
protest.
came up with the SO office, the sheriff's office, and just different things.
But the way that it seems like our community has handled that, law enforcement has been responsive to the folks that have wanted to be heard on that. They've taken appropriate action. The DA's office has taken appropriate action. Now, is everyone perfect? Certainly not. Our system isn't perfect. Our country isn't perfect. Our county isn't perfect. But I think
only one perfection. That's
right. Everybody has taken the appropriate steps. Can we take more steps? Probably.
And we will.
Right.
I used to tell the officers that worked for me, if you haven't learned something today, you hadn't been paying attention. And one thing about law enforcement is they're constantly learning. I mean, we've had law enforcement since, the beginning. Somebody at least enforcing some type of rules. And it's going to continue, but it grows. We've got excellent sheriff with Butch. We'll have, I'm sure, an excellent sheriff when the next one comes in this election. We've got Brett's going to be a great chief. We've got good leadership in our county police departments and sheriff's departments, and that is a step up from a lot of places that just don't have that leadership.
Right.
And so they have a tendency to be proactive on stuff that doesn't have to be brought to their attention by the outside sources. It's usually brought to the outside sources' attention because they have taken action.
Right.
And that's a good change.
And they've allowed everyone to be heard, and everyone deserves to be heard. That's the main, I think, thing we need to take away from things that have happened is that everyone deserves to be heard. And if we can have dialogue and conversation about what everybody's feeling and what each other is feeling, and we actually listen to each other, and we come together to say, you may have valid points, I may have valid points. Hey, my point that I thought was valid may not be valid after I've heard your point and what you're saying. But everyone's got to be willing to listen.
The biggest thing I think it is we have lost the ability to agree to disagree.
Right.
And everybody's point is the only point, and everybody's view is the only view. And if you don't like it, then by damn, you're going to suffer.
Right.
And that just doesn't work.
No.
No two people are going to have exactly the same opinion about exactly the same stuff every time.
No. Everybody's got to have an open mind.
Absolutely.
And like you said, and if after having that discussion,
if you
still disagree, then you just disagree.
Okay, we
That's
disagree.
Fine. Right.
It's
That's
okay.
Right. That's exactly right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Judge Cason, Tracie, I really appreciate you being here.
It's been my pleasure.
I have loved talking to you. I always do. If somebody wants to get a hold of you and talk to you and just ask you some questions, I know it's hard to get a hold of a judge, But let's just say they get a hold of the court system about and they can get questions answered. What would they do, wherever they go?
Well, we've got the Gwinnett County website and the Gwinnett County Court's website will have a lot of information about what's going on in our court system, what we're doing to make people safe right now during the pandemic, how we're handling cases, what the clerk's office is doing. I can answer general questions, but what people are prone to do is they want to say, well, I have this case or I have this issue, and unfortunately I can't answer that.
I can't be your attorney.
That's right. And I can't recommend an attorney. I can send you to the bar and they can recommend.
Exactly. Yeah. And a lot of people don't realize that that's just the way, and that's for a reason.
That's right.
Because that way you don't funnel stuff as a judge.
That's right.
And then start owing people stuff.
Exactly.
It's very important.
Exactly. We got to be neutral. We're always neutral.
You got to be, or if you're not, then the blindfold comes off.
That's right.
Well, thank you again for joining us on Case in Point, presented by Paradigm Security Services. And remember, you can join us live every Wednesday at 11:30 in the morning, or you can go to our show anytime you want. And by going to businessradiox.com, clicking the Gwinnett Studio, then click Case in Point. Please click on the button there that acknowledges that you've been there, and my mind just went blank on what that button's called. But anyway, subscribe. Thank you, Amanda. That subscribe button. Join us next week at 11:30 when we will talk with business leaders about their businesses and related security issues in today's world. And thanks again to my guest, Judge Tracie Cason, Superior Court Judge in Gwinnett County. And for our producers, Mike and Amanda and JJ, I am Rick Strawn. And remember, at Paradigm Security Services, we cover more than just your assets.